morning, everyone. Welcome to our special seminar on celebrating an ethical culture. We are really honored to have with us this morning two distinguished individuals from the University System of Georgia, Mr. Wesley Horn and Mr. Patrick Jenkins. Wesley is the Director of Ethics and Compliance for the University System of Georgia, and Patrick is the Director of Information Technology Audits for the University System of Georgia. Wesley, who is going to speak with you first this morning, is a father of four, and he's a double dog. He graduated with his undergraduate degree from the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia, and then he graduated with honors from the University of Georgia School of Law. He's a former Assistant Attorney General who argued criminal cases for the state before the Georgia Court of Appeals, the Georgia Supreme Court, and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. He's also a former GBI agent and firearms instructor and a designated child abuse specialist for the GBI. Patrick earned both of his degrees, an undergraduate degree and a master's degree from Kennesaw State University. He started his career at Georgia Tech in internal auditing, and after nearly 17 years at Georgia Tech, he went on to Equifax, where he was the Director of Global Security Compliance. He now has almost 20 years in the information technology, security, audit, and compliance industry, and we are pleased to have both of these distinguished gentlemen make this special presentation to us about this really important topic, celebrating an ethical culture. So Wesley and Patrick, the program is yours, and thank you so much for being at East Georgia State College. We appreciate it. Give them a hand.
Hello, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here. I have never been to this campus before, and it's beautiful. So Patrick, my colleague, we both work up in Atlanta. We work in the University System Office, which is the governing body for all the state institutions, which includes Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Kennesaw State University, and of course each Georgia State College. There's a total of 30. Last year there was 31. Next year there's going to be 29, and then shortly after that 28 with the consolidations we're having. So I was like, all right, Patrick, so you've been down there before, so what time, how far is this place? How time should we leave? He's like, Wesley, we need to leave pretty early because sometimes there's actually some traffic jams in Swainsboro. I was like, really? I go, so we live in Atlanta. I'm familiar driving into Atlanta every day, so we got down here, and I'm happy to report there were no traffic jams. We didn't even get behind a tractor or anything, which I think maybe that's what he was referring to. But we did get down here, and so we saw is it the Gambrell Auditorium? Is that what we're in? So we saw the sign for it. Patrick's like, hey, left right there. I'm like, no, I want to go right. We actually have time to tour the campus. And he's like, it won't take too long. And but you know what? It's a beautiful campus. And what a pleasure it must be to go to school here. And it was a real pleasure for us to come down here. And I want to thank Mary. Mary is the university attorney here, and she and I work together quite a bit on projects. And I want to thank President Bomer for having this type of event. And there's an old saying. Y'all, any football fans in here? Any football? I know y'all don't have football, but that's okay. You can still be a football fan. And Lou Holtz, who used to coach for the Notre Dame, once said something. He said, You can't win without talent, but you can sure lose with it. And Patrick's a big Georgia Tech fan. You can relate to that, can't you, Patrick? But it kind of the same thing is kind of true. Well, with Auburn too, but the same thing is true with ethics. And the connection I would make is that you can have an ethical, or you can have a unethical culture with an ethical leader, but you're not going to have an ethical culture without ethical leadership. And I'm going to tell you, from being in the business that, 20 years of law enforcement before I joined the university system at Georgia 2 years ago, and it's a tone at the top. If it's important to your boss, if it's important to the people in management, it's going to be important to the people below them. If the most important thing is accomplishing the mission by any means necessary, well, that's what you're going to get. And so it's refreshing to see, when I visit campuses, that type of culture. And I can tell you, I really do feel this. We have an ethical culture at the system office. And I know you're like, oh, well, hold on, Wesley, let's talk about something more exciting. But when you get in the workforce, you'll appreciate it because it makes your job more enjoyable and there's more productivity. So today, our topics are going to be, most of them are going to relate to Patrick. Patrick, when I used to work for the GBI, we would have fraud cases, and sometimes they involved the university system, which is kind of how I got to know the leadership there. And some of them were pretty high-profile cases. And anytime we had a technology issue, really our go-to person was Patrick. And at that time, Patrick was at Georgia Tech, and of course, quite a technology school. And we're pleased that we were able to get him at the system office. But he's going to talk to you about some of these kind of issues like fraud awareness. Or no, I'm talking about that. He's going to talk to you about identity theft, chip readers, card readers, access codes, and that sort of thing. We're also celebrating an ethical culture at the system office in Atlanta, and we're having a speaker, Dr. Sri Ramamurthy, is a friend of mine, and just an expert in fraud and behavior and what goes into making somebody do those things. And based on what I used to do, that was a really important part of my job, is understanding people's motivations. When I'd go to interview them, understanding them. And I won't go too far into this, but I can tell you that most people in the whole world want to think of themselves as good people, but sometimes they do wrong things. And understanding that underlying motivation, I think is important for my job in law enforcement. It's also important for my current job, and I think administrators, in realizing that most employees are generally good, and it's about creating the environment, the culture, and the controls that help facilitate that. So I thought, and one of the things we're doing in the system also, we got a trivia contest. Does anybody like contests at all? I mean, maybe a little bit? All right, well, I bought some candy. And Patrick's like, are you serious, Wesley? You really want me to give out candy at this professional speech? But I figure if y'all got popcorn, we can give out some candy. So I'm going to show y'all a picture, and I will look the best I can. I don't have my glasses on for the first hand I see. And you guys, what I want you to do is tell me who's on the screen. Are y'all ready? All right, here we go. Okay, all right, we have a winner back here. That's right, it's Bernie Madoff. He is the founder of an investment company. Of course, Patrick, they had to be the furthest one away, right? Sentenced to 150 years in prison for running the biggest fraud scheme in history, defrauded investors of $65 billion in a Ponzi scheme that went undetected for decades. All right, Patrick's staying back there in case there's another back row winner. Here we go, y'all ready? This is harder. Okay, I will give you a hint because it's pretty tough. Former CEO and founder of WorldCom. He shares the first name of the last person you just saw. All right, this is what I do for my first grade Sunday schoolers. His name rhymes with levers. Bernie Evers, I heard it over here. Patrick, right over here, we got a winner. That is outstanding. All right, so the next one I think is going to be easy. This was a tough one, though, I will give you that. Right, Patrick, we got a Sandusky winner right over here. Found guilty of 45 counts of child molestation between 1994 and 2009. The investigation revealed that the president, athletic director, and football coach all knew about it since 1998. So 10 years before, they were aware of the allegations against him, and nothing was done. That's why an ethical culture is important. All right, we have two more. I don't know how much candy we have, though, so here we go. All right. This is an institution of higher learning, which in 1994, 134 seniors are involved in a cheating ring. I'll give you a hint. It's one of our military academies. Nope. Nope. Naval Academy right here. Interesting there. So they had an electrical engineering exam. Somebody got a hold of it and sold it for $50 a piece to 64 students. 24 of the students were expelled. Another 62 were disciplined. And the thing about that is just, wow, can you imagine? My son is a senior in high school right now, and so he's, went through the application process. Can you imagine spending all that time and effort in high school, having the grades and the extracurricular activities to get into a place like that? Had to have a senator's recommendation, going through all the interview process, going through that whole, get up early and do push-up stuff for 4 years, studying so hard, and then at the end, getting expelled and having that on your transcript forever. That's just tough, and I think that's all the more reason that we do things like this. All right, the next one is the toughest one. It's our last one, and this is someone who didn't do anything wrong. This isn't a fraudster, and I'll give you a hint. It's a whistleblower. This is a whistleblower from what I think is the biggest academic fraud in history. And anybody know what school that might be associated with? It's not in Georgia, but it is close. Chapel Hill. Did you already win candy? Now you got to give it away, huh? All right, very good. It's Chapel Hill. And so in that case there, it was a UNC researcher, and her troubles began when she raised concerns about student-athlete literacy levels. For her troubles, she was demoted and required to meet with her supervisor weekly. She was given job duties which required training during the summer. She was isolated from other undergraduate students, and she was given work hours which prevented her attendance at faculty meetings, and she had to have leave approved in 30 days, and ultimately she was terminated. She subsequently did get her job back and was given compensation. But that's not the kind of culture that we're looking for. The type of culture we're looking for is someone that, we want to know about things that aren't wrong. We want to fix it. Patrick, I may need your help. The Weinstein report, it was a prosecutor's released October 22nd, 2014, and what it found was that for 18 years, hundreds of classes were offered to more than 3,000 students. 9,000 illegitimate hours were awarded to students. And these classes were essentially non-existent. No instruction was given. One paper was required. Grades were given largely without regard to the quality of the papers. A statement from the institution afterwards was this: the length of time that this went on and the number of people involved is shocking. And it's amazing that something like that and that cloud continues to linger over them. And, and it's not to point the finger at them, because there's no doubt a lot of great people who work there. But it's also important for us to realize how, in some cases, a small group of people can tarnish the reputation of so many people who spent so much time in their life building something up. I have a few more slides, but I'm going to skip straight to the main point and turn things over to Patrick. And is anybody familiar with a researcher by the name of Dan Ariely? Anybody ever heard of Dan Ariely? He's another PhD that taught at MIT and at Duke, and he looks at motivations people have. And one of the studies that he completed I thought was fantastic for why we do these things. So here's the research study that I thought was good and has always stuck with me. He had a group of students come in, and he gave them a math test. And the test was such that there's no way they could finish them all. So after they did their math test, They took their answers, they scored it themselves, and they got paid on their way out by how many answers they got right. And based on all the people that took it, everybody could get about 4 right. And what they did is they took their answer sheet to the back and they put it through a shredder. Well, the shredder only shredded the outside edges, and you could see exactly what they had done. And so what he found is that most people cheated by just a little bit. And it kind of goes back to my point. I think most people are generally good, but they could cheat just enough. You know, maybe they thought I almost was to get it. And I think they cheated just enough where they could still think good about themselves, yet not take, in their mind, take advantage of somebody. But what I thought was really the point was that he then administered it with a number of varieties. And one of the ways he administered that test was that he had them try to recall, before giving them the math test, he had them try to recall as many of the 10 commandments as they could remember and to write them down. He noted in his research that nobody remembered all 10. But what he found is that nobody cheated. And so what that meant to me, and kind of the takeaway I had from that was, it kind of reinforces, I think, that most people are good people, and I think sometimes they need to be reminded about it. And so anyway, and I think this is a great forum to do just that, you know, with our students and the honor code that you guys have. And if there's not an official honor code, then you guys know what's expected of you here. And Dr. Vollmer and the staff that bring, you know, that have these kind of events to talk about it and to keep it in people's minds. So anyways, I sure appreciate y'all's attention. I'm going to turn things over to Patrick.
Well, good morning. So I've been asked to speak a little bit more on the technical side of things, and Wesley and I have known each other for a long time, and it's been a pleasure working with him. And yes, like your president said, he is a double dog. Are there any other UGA fans in here? Show of hands. Okay, I'll speak really slowly. All right, so. Thank you. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is chip and pin technology. And something recently occurred on October 1st of this year that actually has a personal impact on every one of us that has a debit card or a credit card. As of October 1st, the credit card industry has mandated that vendors and producers of credit cards provide chips within their credit card for extra security. We're going to talk a little bit about why. So during the next couple of minutes, there's 2 pieces of technology I kind of want you to pay attention to. One is the chip, and one is the mag stripe. We will be talking about those a little bit. So on your credit card, everybody has a credit card or a debit card. You have a payment card number, you have your name, the expiration date, and on the back you have a CVV code. Well, that and some other information is contained on that mag stripe and in the chip. Chip and pin is something that's coming on now more so in the United States. It basically, they both store the same information, but the chip has a little bit more security built into it. It has certain encryption algorithms that the mag stripe simply does not have to protect that information. Hopefully, this technology is going to permeate the rest of the United States. It's been a standard in Europe for a long time. Matter of fact, if anybody's been to Europe lately, you tried to pay with a credit card, you probably had a hard time if it didn't have a chip. So that technology has already moved way past other countries, and we're just now adopting it here. So let's look down to the nuts and bolts of how your credit card actually gets stolen. Take a waiter or waitress at a restaurant. You're sitting at a restaurant having a wonderful meal with your family or even by yourself. The bill comes. You take out your plastic card and you pay the waiter or the waitress. They then take that card, either along with your bill, and they take it out of sight, hopefully to go pay for your meal. Another way they can get a hold of it, but you have given up your card. Your card is now out of sight. The holiday shopping sprees are coming upon us here, and I think Black Friday's next week, right? So how many of you ever been distracted at a checkout line? You hand your card to the cashier, something happens. In my case, it's your kid probably climbing on a display or something, so you got to go pull them down. And just for a split second, your card is out of sight. So what they've done, what these crafty people have done who haven't obviously gone to ethics training, they've gained physical control of your card, and you are distracted, whether it's you're finishing up the meal, whether you're chasing your kid through Target, or whatever, you are distracted. They can now take a personal mag stripe reader and store your card information. And it's that quick. These things fit inside the palm of your hand. You can also attach them on top of a smartphone or a tablet. All you need is a split second to swipe that mag stripe information. And then return the card, complete the legitimate transaction and return the card to the owner. In the meantime, all that card information stored on the mag stripe is now in the possession of someone else. So it's a different scam, but they're using the same tool. Another way your credit card can get compromised is at a gas station, right? A lot of gas stations now want you to prepay for gas. And so you come up to a gas station, you see the ubiquitous skimmers, or the mag stripe readers. There's one difference on this picture, though. Most gas stations are required to have a security tamper-proof sticker somewhere along the edge of the keypad. That can show that the card reader has not been tampered with. So I can tell you it's very easy to pop that thing out and put in a new skimmer, which looks just like the old skimmer, but it includes a piece of Bluetooth technology. We all have smartphones. We're all familiar with what Bluetooth is, right? And we know the range is pretty good with a Bluetooth. So every time somebody swipes their card on that mag stripe, it gathers that information and ships it off via Bluetooth signal to somebody sitting in a car with a laptop and grabbing that, or a smartphone, and just collecting that information. Every time a card is swiped, all that information goes. So where does that data go? It doesn't just magically disappear into thin air. It actually goes somewhere. So stolen credit card information is either sold in the U.S. or overseas, usually to Russia, China, Brazil. And this is like currency. You can resell this information. You can use it for online retailers. You can print fake plastic cards and buy goods and then convert those goods to cash using the various auction sites on the internet. So there's a way you can turn over this information fairly quickly. And the data is available instantly. It's not like they have to mail away for it. It's available instantly. But how long does it take for you to notice a breach? We get our credit card bills, every 30 days? Maybe some of us have some alerting set up on their cards. Maybe we're a little bit more proactive and we're checking our accounts. But by and large, small transaction amounts probably will go unnoticed. And if you see a 10-cent transaction here or there, you're probably not even going to dispute it. But 10 cents over hundreds of people add up over time. Now, I will say this, the value of stolen credit cards drops tremendously after the breach has been noticed. And companies and organizations or restaurants or whoever's involved in that have to notify. But believe me, tracking it back to the point of origin is not trivial. It's very hard to do. So criminals have incentive to act fast with this stuff. So if your card gets breached, you're going to know it very quickly. So how does the chip help? Well, we've talked about how they get it. What does the chip do? Well, the chip and pin, or chip and signature, which is what we're doing, also known as EMV if we want to get really technical about it, it can eliminate some of these transactions. It's more difficult to clone the chip than it is just to grab the mag stripe information. Any data stolen off of a chip is only good for a single transaction. So they can only be used once. They can't use it over and over again like they can with the mag stripe information. So in this case, it kind of limits the fraudulent transactions. It's also potentially a little bit easier to detect, but it's not perfect. So it solves everything, right? All right, who are my football friends? Not so fast. The technology is slow to adapt. In spite of the deadline, it's very slow. It's expensive. You have to replace every credit card reader everywhere to accept chip. All of your banks and all of your card vendors had to send you cards with the chips in it. And here's the bad part. The mag stripe is still present. Even if we have a chip on it, look at your credit card. If you see the chip in it, great. Turn it over. Is the mag stripe still there? Well, then, yeah, you're still vulnerable. So it does not solve this problem. Chip and signature is still vulnerable. Now, a PIN, which is personal identification number, is just like you would use with a debit card. You get a card and a number. Most people don't use their credit cards with a PIN. They just sign for it, right? If it's under $20, you don't even do that. But there's no way to verify your signature. Your signature is not digitally stored somewhere where they can actually verify it. So we're kind of getting there, but we're not that. And by the way, this only affects about 35% of credit card fraud. So is it a step in the right direction? Yes. Is it the magic silver bullet that will solve all of our credit card deals? Nope. It would not have prevented these breaches. Target, Home Depot, Neiman Marcus, the Sony breach, Dairy Queen, and Staples. We would not have prevented those breaches. So what are our takeaways? Well, like I said, it's better, but it's not perfect, right? If you go to Europe, you better have one because they are required in Europe. They don't accept mag stripes at all anymore. You still need to monitor your account more than ever, right? Especially if, like I said, buying season's on us. If you're online, if you're buying things, you need to make sure your credit cards are monitored. And by the way, if your bank or your issuer has not issued you a card with a chip in it, call them and ask them why not. And they will probably say, oh, it's an oversight, we'll get it out to you quickly. Hound them if they haven't done that yet. I know that was a really quick flyby on some credit card theft and chip and PIN technology. Any quick questions on that? Yes, sir. Sure. That's right. You know how much time it takes to get a lawyer, get a prosecuting attorney? Wesley, how long does it take to get a prosecuting attorney to go after a couple $100? They're not going to do it. It's more cost effective to give you your money back and to reissue you a card than it is to go after those folks. And like we said earlier, most of the time they're out of the country. The FBI is not going to go after somebody that lost $100. Of course there's exactly. It has to reach a critical mass. And so therefore, technical controls have to go in place. Unless you know the person and you can prove it was Professor Plum in the library with the candlestick, they're probably not going to go after you, after the bad guys. It's a lot more cost effective just to pay you back your money and issue you a new card. Yes, ma'am. The best thing to check is to make sure that on that keyboard where you see the keypad, you can see where it's integrated into the whole pump. Make sure there's a tamper-proof sticker. That's kind of a seal. If that seal has been broken, there's a good chance it's been tampered with. Okay. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. Yes. So that's a good question. If the zip code, the 5-digit zip code, is the closest thing to a PIN that most banks can agree on. Your credit card has a billing address which includes a 5-digit zip code. So it's a lot easier to get your zip code and use it as a second method of authentication, right? Something you have, something you know, and versus having set up a PIN and personalize it to everybody. This is something that automated systems can use on the back end. They automatically pull that information in. And it's not protected. Your zip code is not considered regulated data, so they can use it. So moving right along here. So, all right. So now someone stole your identity, right? We went to the cash register. They got us. They did something. So what happens when somebody actually steals your identity? So what is identity theft, right? Somebody assumes your identity. We talk about ID theft. What actually is it? So somebody steals your identity to do several things. One is to obtain credit. To obtain credit cards for banks or retailers, to steal money from existing accounts, to apply for loans, to rent things, to establish account in another person's name. By the way, all these are violations of federal and state law. So yes, it is against the law to assume somebody else's identity. This goes way beyond cosplay and all that kind of stuff. This is really bad stuff. So how bad is it really, right? We hear about it really, is it that bad? Yeah, it is that bad. In 2012, the federal government put out a report that 7% of persons under the age of 16 or older have been victims of identity theft. So we've got about 100 people in here, 7 people have had their identity stolen. And the cost to industry and the cost to personnel is staggering. The gentleman up back here said, yeah, somebody got in your card and probably got a couple $100, right? Yeah. So multiply that, right? Scale that. So direct losses in 2012 were over $24 billion. That's real money, right? So it's a real issue. Again, we talk about recent data breaches, Target, Home Depot, Dairy Queen. Last year, we had one that hit the university system of Georgia. Everybody who has health care that goes through Blue Cross Blue Shield had your identity compromised. Your information has been stolen. It's just a matter of time whether it's being used, but it has been stolen. 69 million people. So what's the face of identity theft? That's a good-looking guy, isn't it? I'm a victim of identity theft. Yeah, that's about how I felt. After my wallet was stolen in Atlanta last year. What did I have in my wallet? I have my driver's license, my concealed firearms permit. Oh, you can't do anything with that, right? 2 credit cards, a debit card, and my Kroger Rewards card. You know how hard it is to get gas without a Kroger Rewards card? Within 12 hours of my wallet being stolen, my credit cards were being used. Whoever got it racked up $40 in MARTA tokens right off the bat. So what happens if your identity is stolen? First of all, don't panic. It happens. People go through this. There are remedies. Yes, it's going to be a pain to deal with for a while, but don't freak out. You won't be the last person this happens to. It's going to happen to other folks too. So you're welcome to the club. You have rights and remedies. That's the good thing. You have rights and remedies. And you will get through it. But being prepared makes a huge difference on how bad it really happens. So how did it happen? Well, it could have been as easy as the gas station. It could have been your wallet, purse was stolen. You got somebody took mail out of your mailbox. Stolen papers out of a trash can. Right? Wesley was talking about the things that weren't quite shredded quite well. Smartphone. How much information is on your smartphone, right? An unethical relative. Information from social media and genealogy and other websites. By the way, if your whole life is on Facebook and you can link it to Ancestry.com, your identity will get stolen. It's a matter of time. Right? So that's directly affecting you. What about indirect? Well, corporate data breach, right? If you went to Home Depot and your card got breached, it got breached. A spear phishing email. Those go out to all kinds of people. Hey, click this link. Public Wi-Fi sniffing. If you got an open Wi-Fi connection, please don't do any banking over it, because I'm the jerk sitting in the corner with a laptop grabbing the information as it goes across. Well, not me, but somebody. Any kind of malware that gets downloaded to your computer or your smartphone, it's real. They can grab that information. And reusing old Social Security numbers. They do recycle those. And I was thinking about that one time. How many lives would it take to get through all the Social Security numbers? They've run out. So they're reusing old Social Security numbers. So great-great-uncle Frank that died in 1952, his Social Security number has been reused. But guess what? Somebody's using that identity. So how do you fix it? Well, you got to assess the potential damage. What are you looking at, right? How can we triage this? Freeze your credit report. Put a 90-day credit alert on your report. That is the first thing. That will prevent somebody from doing some very serious damage. Opening up a bank account in your name, opening a line of credit in your name, buying a house in your name. Yeah, it really stinks when you get stuck with a mortgage that you're not even getting to live in the house, right? Notify your bank and your financial institutions immediately. Change your passwords and your personal identification numbers. Most importantly, out of all this, file a police report. Even if you go to your campus police, if you go to your local police, if you call the feds, doesn't matter. Get a police report on this. And then start watching. Monitor your bank accounts that hopefully you've just changed your password on. And be proactive. So assessing the damage. All right, What got hit? Well, I knew because my wallet was gone that those 2 credit cards and a debit card were considered burned. Well, fortunately, I still had one more emergency card that I used, so I could get by. Determine the length of compromise. By the way, you don't know how often it happens. I was fortunate that I knew my wallet was stolen, it was gone, and I immediately started noticing the weird transactions. Home Depot breach went on for 4 months before they knew what was going on. Okay, so you got to figure out how long this has gone on. You got to get the information, the contact information. If a corporation mentions that, hey, you might be a victim here, get that contact information, write it down. Keep a pen and paper handy for any kind of note taking. And if you're good on your smartphone, great, unless it was stolen. But keep a pen and pad handy because this will help you. And try to create a timeline of events. This is going to help you when you're filing a police report. Freeze your credit report. I worked for Equifax for 3 years. They take this stuff very seriously. By freezing it, you can put basically, it's exactly what it says. Nobody can file for credit as you. They cannot open a new account. By the way, the person who took my wallet, bought 40 tokens in MARTA, $40 in MARTA tokens, went up to Lenox Square Mall and tried to open up 2 cell phone accounts with my identity. I had already put the freeze on my credit file, so those attempts were blocked. You can do this through all 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. I used to work for Equifax out through Equifax's website up there, but all 3 of them do just fine, and they do share the information. And you'll get a PIN. You'll create a personal identification number for this freeze alert. By the way, keep that PIN handy in case you ever need to thaw your credit. Put a 90-day fraud alert on your credit report. Same thing. You can do this without a police report. If you call any one of them and say, I want a 90-day fraud alert, my wallet's been stolen, they under the rules, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and you're a consumer, they have to do it. And it will permeate all 3 bureaus. It shows up almost immediately. Notify your bank, right? Usually on the back of your card, unless it was stolen, there's a 1-800 number to call for fraud alerts, right? Take a note of that number or look on their website. I'm sure they've got that number listed there. Call them immediately and let them know which cards need to be canceled. Have your account number handy. Remember I talked about having a note and pad? This is where that comes in really handy. It's very important. They will not be able to you will not be able to dispute the fraudulent charges until they've actually posted. It's weird. There's a transaction date and there's a post date, and usually there's like a 48-hour difference depending on how fast it is. So until it actually posts, you won't be able to dispute it. Change your PINs, passwords. Talked a little bit about open Wi-Fi, right? Beware of that, right? If you if you go to Starbucks, be careful on open Wi-Fi. If your email was compromised, get a new email. Google and Yahoo emails are free. It's easy to set up another account. Like I said, file a police report. You need to contact the officers in the jurisdiction that the event took place, get all the details, times, dates. That's why I said it's important to create a timeline. Make sure you get a hard copy of the report once it's available, because the credit bureaus will need this. In my case, my driver's license was stolen. You know how many organizations use your driver's license number as a form of ID? So to get a new driver's license number, you will need to have a police report. They'll issue a new license, but to get a new license number, you got to have a police report. And create an identity theft report with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. That's the enforcement arm of the Federal Trade Commission, right? File it online with them because they can work on your behalf. Remember I said you have remedies? Monitor your accounts. Use an online site. Make sure it's a safe device and network. If your computer and your network is hacked, for goodness sakes, don't use that same network and computer to go into your bank accounts unless you're absolutely positively sure it's been fixed. Keep track of any fraudulent charges and attempts. It's a good chance that if it doesn't work the first time, they'll try it again. So watch them. Keep your original copies of your paperwork, your bank and card statements, because that'll come in very handy. And once a dispute is made, keep the information on file so you can track this information in case they don't actually remove it. And be proactive. Every year, even a college student, I'm a college student, I don't have that much credit. Yeah, you do. You exist. Go to annualcreditreport.com and get a free credit report. If you want to go with the guys that have the cool jingles, that's great. They're going to charge you. Annual credit report, excuse me, annualcreditreport.com is run by the government. It's free. And if you're so inclined, use a credit monitoring service after a breach, whether it's LifeLock, whether it's Equifax, Experian. I'm not endorsing any of these guys, but they do good work. Here's a big one. Keep separate accounts for business and personal use. I have an email account that I do all my online shopping with. Nobody knows it but me. My wife knows. But keep those things separate. Like I said, Yahoo and Google and Hotmail, those accounts are free. Create firewalls between your email accounts. I know it can be kind of a pain sometimes, but guess what? Your smartphone, it can handle multiple accounts. Shred documents in the mail that you get in the mail you don't need. Don't just crumple them up and throw them out back, because goodness gracious, there's a lot you can get from dumpster diving. Talked about open Wi-Fi. Don't transmit sensitive information over an unsecure network, period. Deactivate old social media accounts. All right, hands up. Who has a MySpace account? Right, it's the abandoned amusement park of the internet, right? Get rid of your MySpace account. Nobody uses MySpace anymore, right? The people at MySpace are, their stock's going down right now. Unless you're really using it, which if you are, great. But if you don't need it, get rid of it. You got an old Facebook account, you decided to give it up Facebook, you're going to Google Plus or whatever, great. Get rid of those old social media accounts. Be careful with email links. Those could be phishing. And I'm not talking about striped bass, right? Those emails that have links in them, unless they're coming from somebody you absolutely know, even still, give them a call and say, hey, did you really send this to me? Verify it. Home Wi-Fi. Who has Wi-Fi at their house? How many of them have passwords? Who doesn't have a password? Okay, where do you live? Because I'm gonna drive by later and just, no, seriously. Besides the fact that your neighbor is probably browsing all kinds of weird sites over your network, which is not a good thing, you want to put a password on your home Wi-Fi. By default, these things come out of the box and they're wide open. Great. Change the default password. If I drive by your house and I see Belkin router, I know the default password for Belkin. So unless you've changed it, I can get into your network just as easy as if there were no password. So change those default passwords. Use strong passwords. ABC123 will not cut it. It won't. So 8 characters, alphanumeric, special character when possible. Put a pin on your smartphone. How many, you get your smartphone, right? You just swipe your thumb across it and you're in. Okay, don't lose it, right? Put a pin on there. If you're tired of getting robocalls, if you're tired of getting marketing calls, call the CFPB and put yourself on the do not call list. If they call you, they can get in trouble. They can be fined. If you're in the military, we got any military folks? Former military folks? Okay. You got relatives that are military? Before they deploy on active duty, put an active duty alert on their credit report. If they're deployed overseas, chances are they're not buying a Chevy in Oklahoma City, right? So make sure you put an active duty alert on their credit file. And know your rights. You have rights under the under federal law by the CFPB has all this information for you. It's a great website. Know what your rights are. Any questions at this point? Have I scared you sufficiently? Yes. Well, chances are if you've donated to a charity, they sell that list. So I can't really help you there. But I would be cautious to give your credit card over the phone. That's good. But, right. So the do not call is also includes a do not mail list. You ever receive a postcard in the mail? Hi, you're qualified for $5,000 down on a new Chevy Camaro. Come to Billy Bob Chevy off Route 16 and we'll hook you up, right? That's done by a credit marketing company. They know that information because they pulled your credit file and they've seen that you're credit worthy. If I'm doing some dumpster diving or mail searching, if I'm trying to get your identity, that to me says you've got great credit. That makes you a very worthy target. So if you don't want to get those, I mean, if you're in the market for a new Chevy Camaro, you can probably work something out without a postcard. But if you don't have to have that stuff sent to you, don't. I mean, it's just one of those other things that if somebody's trying to get your information, it's an easy way to get it. Any other questions? Yeah. I have 3 passwords, and I have 3 derivations of them. So I don't use hundreds of passwords. I have 3 passwords, and I have a couple modified versions of them. In here. There are apps that you can download that can store all your passwords, and I know we're supposed to change passwords every 90 days. I get it. It can be a pain, but it is necessary. There are some apps that password keepers and password lockers. Be sure that if you use an iPhone or an Android phone, and you're thinking about getting one of these apps, chances are one of them may have come with your phone. Chances are you may have to go out to the Google Play Store or the App Store and download one. Before you download it, research it. Go out to Google and ask Google or Siri or whoever you're talking about. Ask about this app before you download it, before you start plugging in sensitive information. Because who knows, some of the best programmers in Russia may have programmed that, and they'll be very glad for you to store your passwords in there. Okay, so do a little bit of homework before you start using those type of apps. Make sure that you get at least 2 reputable sites saying, hey, this is a good app, it's clean, it's fine. And once you do download it, make sure it's scanned with antivirus software. Chances are these things, they'll squawk out whether you know it or not. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Don't go to those websites. No, I'm just kidding. They'll send you emails, right. So you've gone to a website that is, you're probably using an older browser or one that hasn't been patched, and you get that's called ransomware. And it downloads your computer, and it gives you a nefarious message. Your information has been locked away, and unless you pay me $1,000, I'm going to delete it all, right? That's a possibility. Ransomware attacks are possible. So what you want to do is, the only really way is avoid those parts of the internet. I know it's kind of a weird saying, but there are certain parts of it's like bad neighborhoods. We all know, does Swainsboro have a bad neighborhood? Do you go walking through there at night? No. So the internet's kind of the same place. Avoid some of those areas unless you're doing it on a machine that you have no problem losing. So if you get one of these alerts, if it's a university-owned computer, your IT folks can take a look at it. And even for student support, y'all do student IT support? Yeah, so bring it to you've got some really sharp IT folks here at East Georgia. You really do. And if they can't figure it out, then they probably know somebody who can, right? So if it's a work computer or a student computer, have these guys take a look at it. If it's a home computer, these things are built precisely for the purpose that they're built for, right? Sometimes it's best to pull the hard drive out, put a new hard drive in, reboot. What's the saying from the movie? Nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Yeah. And make sure that you've got antivirus software. Make sure that you've got anti-malware software. There's some free ones out there. Microsoft if you're running a Windows operating system, Microsoft Security Essentials should protect you from most of that stuff. If you're running a web browser, which you probably are, Internet Explorer was not my first choice for a browser. I personally use Google Chrome. It's got some built-in security features that are less susceptible than other browsers such as IE or Firefox. By the way, don't take this as the USG is endorsing Chrome. I'm not. I'm just saying what I use. You're welcome. Anything else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure to visit with y'all. If there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if anybody would like a copy of these presentations, well, it's useful information, let us know, and we'll work it out that we can get it to you. Thank you.